Welcome back. This time we're going to explore the animated GIF. The animated GIF is simply just a really short movie. Usually they're like 10 or 15 seconds or less, and they are a relatively small file size. Remember that GIFs can only handle a certain number of colors, so you want to keep these animations simple and keep them clean. In the lecture, I provided you guys with a couple of links. One was some links out to a beautiful art form called cinemagraphs. Cinemagraphs are a kind of GIF, and I invite you to go explore that. It's really worth it. They're gorgeous. I also provided another link to some work that's not gorgeous. So, I figure you have to know what's really good and what's really bad. So that example of the really bad one has a web page that is full of really awful animated GIFs. Now, just a word of warning. If you make those kinds of animated GIFs, I will find you. I will hunt you down. Okay, but don't be too scared. But let's go ahead and take a look at how to make a nice animated GIF. Go up to File. We're going to create a new file. You want it to be 300 by 300. And we're going to call this, oddly enough, animated GIF. And click OK. I'm going to move my guy out here a little bit further. The colors that I've chosen are these three nice browns up in my swatches panel. A dark brown, medium brown, and golden brown. You'll find that as a beginning design student, that it's easiest to work within one color family than it is to work with a lot of different colors. You really can't go wrong with monochromatic color. So that's why I chose the browns, and let's get those loaded into your swatches. The darkest brown is in the background, the medium brown is in the foreground. Now, you don't have to have my exact colors, and in fact, I would prefer that you choose some colors of your own. Okay, so I've got my dark and my medium in there. I also have my gradient tool selected and my radial gradient tool selected. Now, I'm going to draw kind of off-center. I'm going to start over here and draw down this way just a little bit. And I find that putting my gradient a little off-center adds a little more character to my stuff. So that's going to be your background for your animation. Above this background, we're going to put a text layer. So give me the text tool, and I want you to choose the lightest color you have. And let's click right on top here and simply call this animated GIF. Now you'll hear people pronounce GIF two ways. You'll hear it GIF and you'll also hear GIF. They're both just fine. So there's mine. Now you'll notice I'm using Tahoma and it's 36 point. I tweaked this a little bit before I was doing this demonstration. I went into my character panel and I changed my leading, and I changed my kerning. So you feel free to do that too if you would like. Now I want this to be centered on my stage, so first let me accept that text. Then I'm going to come over to my layers panel and hit the animated GIF and the background. I'm going to grab my move tool by hitting the V key to access the alignment tools. I'm going to hit that center horizontal and center vertically. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, above this layer, we're going to put in more things to animate. The first thing we're going to put in there, actually we're going to put in 4 layers. And these are going to be our leaves. So leaves 1, leaves 2, leaves 3, and leaves 4. Click on leaves 1. Grab your brush tool Go up into the brushes drop down box and you're going to go down a little bit until you see the leaves. Now, honestly, you can choose whatever brush you choose, whatever brush you want. I'm just going to choose the leaves. And this is a little big for me, so I'm going to pull that down just a little bit so it's about 80. And I'm going to click maybe one time. You'll notice if you click and hold or click and drag, you get a lot of leaves. That's because of the scatter property inside the brush presets. Now, click on leaves 2. Click one more time. That looks great. Leaves 3. Beautiful. And leaves 4. Might put just a little more in there. That looks great. So let me give you a preview. What's going to happen is we're going to turn on our text, turn on leaves 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's going to be part of our animation. There's also going to be one more part, and this is really cool because it has to do with that tutorial that I posted about inside of your lecture. So let's create one more layer here. Call this highlight. Grab your elliptical marquee. Come onto that highlight layer and drag. Select your lightest color. Now we're going to put a glow on this thing. And whenever you want something to glow, usually that glow is very, very saturated in color. So I want pure color. If you go up to the upper right-hand corner of your color picker, that's where the saturated colors live. So I'm just going to click right there, and it's going to turn orange. Now, I know you're thinking, hey, orange, oh my gosh. It really won't be over the top by the time we're done. So we need to grab the paint bucket tool, which lives underneath the gradient tool. And making sure that the highlight layer is chosen, I'm going to simply click inside of the marquee that we drew. Hit Command or Control D to deselect. Now this next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get this to be blurred. So let's go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we want that thing to be very, very soft. So I was playing with my radius a little bit earlier and I chose 34.8. You can choose whatever looks good to you. And click OK. So great. The last thing we need to do to our highlight layer is we need to create a clipping mask down onto the animated GIF text. So hold down your Alt or Option key and click. Now, watch what happens when I take my highlight, hold down the Shift key to constrain my motion from left to right. So hold down the Shift, click, and then drag across the text. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now make sure that that highlight is dragged completely off of your text. The last thing that we need to do is to actually do the animation. So to start doing that, we need to be able to see the animation tools. Go up to your workspaces, look for the double arrows. You want motion, and then we need to change this from the timeline view to the frames view. So find this corner menu box, and then you want to find the one that says Convert to Frame Animation. Great. Okay, so we want to turn these layers off. I think I'm just going to leave this one on, the animated GIF on, and the highlight on. I'm going to create a new frame right here on this icon next to the trash can. And then I'm going to turn on Leaves 1, create a new frame, turn on Leaves 2, create a new frame, turn on leaves 3, create a new frame, turn on leaves 4. Then finally create a new frame for frame 5. Now don't do anything, but for frame 7, frame 7, I want you to take the highlight with the move tool, hold down the shift key, and drag that thing across your stage. Okay, now here's the magic. You're going to use something called tweening. So you know that when we started frame 6, my frame 6, the highlight was on the left, and now on frame 7, it's on the right. So what we need to do is we need to create the in-between frames going from the left to the right. We do that with the tween tool. So come down to the tween tool, it's right here. And we want to add 5 frames to this. You're going to tween with the selection. We have frame 6 and frame 7 selected. So that's perfect. And tell it to create those in-between frames for you so we don't have to do them by ourselves. So we have those new frames, 7 through 11 are the new frames. I'm going to highlight all the way back to frame 6. And I'm going to do a little more magic because not only do I want that highlight to move from left to right, I want it to move back from right to left. So with those frames highlighted, 6 through 12, go over to that little dialog box again and find Copy Frames. Now go to the dialog box again, hit Paste Frames. Paste it after the selection, that's perfect. Beautiful. Leave them highlighted. Okay? There's one more thing we're going to do, and we need to reverse those frames. And that's going to give us what we want. Now, the final thing we need to take a look at is the fact that each one of these is currently set to 10 seconds long. We need to change the number of seconds. So I'm going to highlight all the way back to frame 1. And it doesn't matter which frame you click on, but click on the second timing. And we're going to change that down to maybe 0.2 seconds, or let's try 0.1 and see what that does. Okay, now you'll notice that all of those frames now have a 0.1 second timing. Go ahead and click play. Click frame 1 and click play. That's perfect. So that's a short example of how to do an animated GIF. Now you can do all kinds of variations on this. If you wanted to fly in portions of the text, you would separate out the word animated, put that on one layer, put the GIF on a different layer, and you could fly those in from separate places. You can also make that text come in, fade in, by changing the transparency, also called the opacity, from frame to frame to frame. So there are all kinds of things you can do, but I thought this would be kind of fun, and it was inspired by that article that I mentioned earlier in the lecture. Hey, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next film.